If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hey everyone, it's the Think Generational Podcast with your host Amir, and I just wanted to pull up today just to have, have a conversation about 2020. Leaders are readers. What book that you read, or how many books that you read for the year? For me, I was never a big reader until I heard of the quote, leaders are readers. So I really made it an emphasis this year, 2019, from 18 to 19, to really focus on reading. So I wanted to share the top 4 books that I read for 2019. I'm going to start with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Very popular book. Oh my gosh, this was a book that I had a chance. I started to read, and then I didn't, at the moment, wasn't too keen and really interested in reading, but I really made an emphasis to really reread this book. So I got a chance to reread this book, and when I tell you, this book really, I can see the while businesses were built off this book, lives were changed off this book by Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. The one thing I can remember getting out of this book was where Napoleon Hill talked about desire. And if you have the desire for what you want in life, you will be able to accomplish it. So I will say Think and Grow Rich. No particular order, probably was the one book that I really enjoyed reading, that I really got some value out of it. The second book is The 7 Habits. Actually, let me go back. The second book was Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. This book, I think to me, I may be one of the few, but I enjoyed this book more than Think and Grow Rich, because it really talked about, the title, it could be a little misleading, but the book itself was an eye opener, because Napoleon Hill was having a conversation with his other self, which was the devil. And it goes to show you how in life, if you are drifting away, you don't take control of your mind in your life, the devil, he, not like literally, but the devil will take control, and you will find yourself drifting through life. So there was a quote, I think, I may be wrong, but Martin Luther King says, most people are dead, at a very young age, but physically they don't die until later on in life. But this book by Napoleon Hill, to me, was an eye opener. And actually, I plan on rereading this book again. So if you ever, when it comes to take control of your life, this book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil, was a very good book. Third book was the E Myth. But sorry, actually, not the E Myth. I apologize. The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This book, I've actually done my Toastmaster speeches on this book. This book was a great read because there were 7 habits that Stephen Covey talked about in this book that highly effective people possess. So when you really think about it, this book was written and he talked about the 7 habits. You know, I learned about the paradigm shift. There was a story in there where he was on this train station. He talked about the paradigm shift. But the 7 habits were: be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first. Then you had then you had um I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart at this moment. Um begin with the third one was begin with the end in mind. Um then there was a he also talked about um all right, give me a second. I apologize. I'm having a brain fart. I'm just thinking um, of these habits. But this book really helped. Me. Okay, think win-win was the fourth habit. The fifth habit was seek first to understand, then to be understood. And then the sixth habit was synergize. And then the seventh habit was sharpen the saw. So I'm sorry for the long delay, but those were the 7 habits he talked about in this book. So this was a very interesting read. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it because it really goes to show you it moves you from the and it moves you from because he talks about like how you go from dependent to independent to interdependent. So this book is a very good read. Then the last book I can probably say is a book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. This book is a very good book. I highly recommend it because I, for myself, struggle with time management. And this book really, uh, I think for me, this is a book I will have to reread again because my goals next year is not to read X amount of book, but is to read and implement. And this book by Gary Keller, The One Thing, it really talks about, and there was a focusing question Gary Keller asked in this book. If you do, what is the one thing that you do? If you do, it will make everything else easier or irrelevant. What is the one thing that you need to do? What is the one? It's a focusing question that he asked in this book. So I can. There were some other books too. Um, I can. Sometimes I think we're readers. You tend to start book and then you don't finish reading. There was the Miracle Equation by Hal Elrod. I recommend. Um, I also recommend another book called Tribal Millionaires. This is by This is by David Osborne and Pat. I can't. They say Pat Heron. I can't say the name. Got a chance to read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Another good read. So, but the top 4 books that I mentioned: Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and The One Thing by Gary Keller. So, what's some books that you read? Share. Let me know. like you got a chance to read that you found very good for this year, that really moved you, made some life changes. All right. Well, till then, champions, we'll talk later. And what is the one thing people should be focusing on? Generational wealth. Until then, I'm out.